This morning for a presentation on reducing your total cost of risk through Succeed Risk Management. Succeed is an organization that we came across about 2 years ago and are really excited to have partnered with in terms of the capabilities they give us to provide better service to all of you, and also for those of you that are having increasingly sophisticated loss control and safety departments, an ability to do a lot of things internally, where as responsive as we try to be, we can't be every place all the time, and so it's a great tool. Kurt Shaw, who's the founder, developer of everything that you're going to see today, is a career safety professional as well in multiple industries, and so he has a great background to have both developed this product and present to us today. We're going to spend about an hour and a half together. If you have questions, how would you like questions addressed? In the moment or at the end? Or
probably in the moment.
Okay, so if you have a question, raise your hand, throw something, and get our attention. A little bit of the perfunctory housekeeping that we're supposed to do. So there's exits at the side here, exits at the rear. If you need to use the restroom, from doing a lot of presentations myself, I'll speak on behalf of Kurt. If you sit there and squirm, it really makes the presenter uncomfortable. So feel free to go ahead and make your own self comfortable, and then come back and join us. So the restrooms, as you leave through the exit there, are kind of across and through the kitchen. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Kurt, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody move this way? Okay. Does that work? Okay.
Here, you go over here.
Is this good?
We'll figure them out today.
Is it the screen?
I can't see the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Or go to your line.
So, let's see, we can put this down here. So as I'm moving the podium around, you guys can, take a look at the. Perfect. Is that good? Thank you.
Can you put that microphone on?
I have one here. Yeah, I think it's working. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Put it up higher. I have a pretty loud voice, so is that coming through? Yeah. Okay, good. So you see my background here. As Randy mentioned, I was with a chemical company back east for about 8 years. Built their safety and health program. Came out to the West Coast with Mitsubishi, where we once again built an environmental health and safety group to really focus on total cost of risk. And you can see my background. I won't bore you with it. I'll talk about it throughout the presentation here today. And Randy, where are you? Oh, there you are. Feel free to jump in and talk about how SullivanCurtisMonroe really engages with you, the client, using the Risk Management Center. So the presentation today, we're going to focus on total cost of risk. Number one is how do you elevate its importance? Why do you want to elevate its importance? And then two, move into the Risk Management Center, which Randy mentioned. So the Risk Management Center, how many people in here have actually accessed it? Excellent. And you come in through SullivanCurtisMonroe, you don't come in through Succeed. Click on the button, it opens up into basically a landing page that we'll get into later in the presentation. And really the benefits here, and really just to kind of introduce the Risk Management Center, is it focuses and enables you to create amazing efficiencies, save a lot of time, gain compliance, and all this leads to total cost of risk. And retaining and pulling in, and I'll show you different discoveries that we have done working directly with clients on how much money we have saved them using the Risk Management Center. So this presentation is really to give you a global idea of what is total cost of risk, and then secondly to deploy the Risk Management Center to start pulling that money off the table. And that's what I've spent a career doing with people, is helping them create these efficiencies to really drive down their total cost of risk, at the same time reducing their losses, which creates win-wins for everybody out there. So what is total cost of risk? Three components to it. Number one is your cumulative cost of your insurance premiums. Two, all your deductibles or routine losses. And then three, what I call the fun stuff, which is all the hidden costs, which I'll go into. That's where a lot of times these costs are buried in your budget. You don't see where they are because they're just little pieces here and there. And this is where we have different discoveries, and I'll send to you, or I'll actually give it to Randy to hand out to everyone, that total cost of risk calculator, an Excel spreadsheet that you can go into. It has dummy data in it when you get it. Just scrub that out and then put your own data in there. You can actually trend, which is what you want to do, your total cost of risk over like a 5-year period. So when I started at the chemical company in Mitsubishi, we were sitting there with a really high, not on the chemical company, but Mitsubishi, we were sitting there with a really high experience modification factor. Everybody knows what that is? Okay. Basically a ton of money was being left on the table year after year after year. And so going back to the title of the presentation here, total cost of risk, how do you elevate its importance? How do you get that quantified and in front of the people like the CFO, the president of the company, to really wake them up to how much money they're wasting and they can actually recoup using something like the Risk Management Center. So even if you're doing a great job and driving down your total cost of risk, industry average indicates that total cost of risk is still trending up the last 3 years in a row. And I'll have these little self-assessments along the way. I'll also send you a PDF of this presentation that you can use internally, change it if you want to, or I can send you the PowerPoint. Anyway, I'll have these little self-assessments built into this presentation, and I'll put this all together into one total discovery that I'll send to you to actually go through for your organization and figure out different places where the Risk Management Center can be deployed to start giving you the roadmap to drive down your total cost of risk. So this is the first self-assessment. 4 questions. What is or do you know what your organization's total cost of risk is today? How many people know what it is? How much money you're spending, wasting, etc. Cumulative cost. 2, is it trending up? Is it trending down? That's what critical question. Because if it's trending up, all of a sudden you put a call into Randy, you say, oh my God, look at the mess we got ourselves into. You know how experience modification factors work, where they, you're basically sitting on your loss history for, that data's on your books for 4 years. It just tags along with you. You don't want the tail wagging the dog, that kind of thing. And then next question, what are the significant cost drivers? When I started at Mitsubishi, we had a couple losses that were just stupid losses that we got rid of right out of the way. Like people dropping wafers, silicone wafers, which is basically a piece of glass, on the floor and then picking it up with their fingers. What happens? They get finger cuts. The nurse or we ran 24/7, whoever was on duty shot them down to the emergency room. Every one of those was a claim, and every one was a needless claim. So we put into place different controls right out of the gate, like a HEPA back, so don't pick them up if you drop them. Secondly, use a carrying case. Don't hand carry them so you don't drop them in the first place. And then immediately that went down. So that was driving our frequency. Severity was one department, the laughing department, where people had tons of shoulder and back injuries from picking up 80-pound gears all day long and leaning out and extending, which we put a little mini jib crane in and alleviated that one. So this stuff is fun to do. So you got to find what are your significant cost drivers. And then we'll get into how you use the Risk Management Center for that. And then fourth is, do you have a plan in place? Who does what by when to drive down your total cost of risk? So you got to know what it is. You got to know the drivers. You got to know if it's trending up or down. And then get a plan in place to actually fix it. Why do you want to do it? Obviously, the financial reasons, and then these are all the other critical reasons. And we do training all the time and just reinforce all this stuff. Corporate ethics and reputation, increased employee retention, quality of product and services that you offer, enhanced compliancy. How many people in here have operations in California? Everybody, right? You all have to do an IIPP, Injury Illness Prevention Program. If you don't remember anything else other than the reason to engage the Risk Management Center coming out of the presentation day, the Risk Management Center is your IIPP. And I can go off on tangents and give you different examples, but it allows you to build one, deploy it, manage it, document it, so when Cal OSHA walks in or Randy calls you up or whoever from SullivanCurtisMonroe and says, hey, an insurer wants to come visit you, you want to showcase all the good work you're doing. And the Risk Management Center is a way to do it. You just say, hey, we got this thing dialed, our mod's trending down, we have a IIPP in place, a real one, not a corporate name type of template program. Same thing if Cal OSHA comes in. How many people are in the construction trade in there? Anybody? No? Okay. In construction, manufacturing? Okay. So IS Networld. How many people have heard of IS Networld? So IS Networld is, number one, not going away. They did a conference this year. President Clinton was the keynote speaker. They have a lot of attention. And what they do is very similar to what I did when I was at Mitsubishi, where I would pre-audit a contractor before I would let them come in and even bid on a job, because I did not want business interruption. I did not want them hurting my employees. I did not want them to have a loss with one of their employees on my site and have a general liability claim, et cetera, et cetera. Did they have adequate certificates of insurance and coverages? All this was done in the pre-audit stage. This is what IS Networld does, and there's other groups forming around the country doing the same thing. And they basically do pre-audits that you're not even allowed to get work from your client base unless you get pre-audited. And we get calls all day long with different organizations kind of scrambling at the last minute to try to comply with IS Networld. So just kind of look them up, IS Networld. You'll see them. They come up in a Google search, and then start looking into what they're doing and what they're requiring. So these are all reasons to focus on your total cost of risk and using the Risk Management Center. Loss reduction, obviously, and then showcasing to carriers. And every one of these impact your total cost of risk. So I'm going to increase the pace here pretty quickly. So just raise your hand. I know it's early in the morning, but I'm going to start kind of spooling it up here. So what we want to do is have a proactive strategy, not a reactive strategy. You don't wait for OSHA to come in. You don't wait for your carrier to come in. You get proactive. And you focus on, if you want to focus on it from a financial standpoint, all those other benefits that we just went over, they tag along, which is the great thing about it. So you you're basically increasing your profit by having a proactive strategy. So let's take a look at these items. Number one is the cost of insurance, cumulative cost of insurance. So all lines of coverage, any other fees that you see in your deck page, your summary of your insurance coverages. This depends on the type of policies, whether or not you're in a captive or a retro, whether or not you have reinsurance or you're looking to be self-insured. These all play into what is your cumulative cost. Obviously, sitting in California, unrated state, but they still use the XMOD. SullivanCurtisMonroe is your expert here. They can sit down and walk you through how a mod is actually calculated. But just like your car insurance, you have a bunch of losses, your insurance premiums go up. So the mod is basically a 4-year floating average, looking at the earliest 3 years of those last 4 years, and they plug all that severity data, how much total loss and how many claims total frequency into a calculation, and they compare your losses to what is the industry average, and that gives them basically a ratio. That's your XMOD, your experience modification factor, your MOD, your whatever you want, all these acronyms for it. But it's basically a pure multiplier. So if you have, say your base premium is $100,000 and your mod is, and you're really doing a good job, you're working with SullivanCurtisMonroe and their loss control team, you got the Risk Management Center dialed, losses are coming down, you're at a 0.5, 0.6 XMOD, and your competition's at a 2.0. Is that the situation you want, or do you want the other way around? So you want to be able to outbid. You want to be able to drive down your cost. I could sit here and give you story after story of organizations that we went in and worked with where they're sitting there reactively saying, kind of come to us with, they finally got religion. They said, we need to fix our XMOD. And that's what we do using the Risk Management Center. So we're basically giving you the tools to do it here. So the game is to drive down your losses, the red line, where you look at it from an OSHA recordable standpoint or an XMOD standpoint. The game is to drive your losses down, frequency and severity below industry average, and then keep it there. And it takes vigilance and diligence and vigilance to keep this on the front burner. Never let it go to the back burner. If you don't remember anything else other than today, remember that. Keep this stuff on the front burner. If you start to let it slip, that's when, all of a sudden you start to say, gee whiz, our losses are getting away from us. And once again, at the break, I can tell you some stories in there, but in the sake of time, I won't get off on too many stories. So number 2, retaining losses. These are your deductibles, what I call conscious non-insured exposures. You may say, we have a really good loss control program here. Our exposure is minimal. We can either have a higher deductible or may go without coverage. Workers' comp required, other coverages not required. So you may fly, with minimal coverage or no coverage in some cases. I'm not saying I recommend that, but the point is you need to have this is where SullivanCurtisMonroe and their expertise comes in. Sit down and work with you, what I call both eyes open. What are your exposures and what are the coverages? And then build all this into your what your coverages are. Direct claims management. At Mitsubishi, I hired a nurse where every day, believe it or not, we would sit down and go over every open claim. And we would focus on what are we doing to get that person back to work, back to a full release. We would engage the claims adjuster if we needed to. Total ownership. That was a cost I bore internally on my budget, but it was paid for thousands of times over with how quickly we reduced the severity claims and got those people back to work, etc. And then things like unplanned losses from a denied claim, things like that. Then you get into the fun stuff. Things like risk management costs. Somebody, like hiring somebody from, like Randy or myself, or from his team to come out and do safety training for you, forklift training, walkthroughs, gap analysis, all this stuff costs money. Engineering controls to fix problems, return to work management, lost production time, business interruption. It goes on and on. These are the hidden costs, and I'll show you different examples instead of getting in the weeds here, where we actually sat down with people and we figure out, what are you spending today? And this is that spreadsheet that I'll send to you where you can actually get in and do this type of thing. And real quick on this, I'll give you one example right now that comes to mind. We work with a very large Native American organization, about 5,000 employees, 29,000 square miles. They have 5 safety and health people that they're trying to comply with all the environmental health and safety regulations and training that they have to go through. And believe it or not, with the driving expense, travel expense, and everything else, $3.1 million is what they're paying today in hidden costs of just trying to do all the compliancy that they need to do. And I said, how do you even do it? And they said, we don't. So their degree of compliance is 60 to 80%. And literally, they can take our system, load their employees, set up the sites, assign the trainings, the online trainings, and be compliant in a relatively short period of time. And pull that $3.1 million back into the budget to use in a much more proactive, fun manner. So anyway, it adds up. When I was at Mitsubishi, I did this form, which is in the Risk Management Center. If you type in there incident report or incident calculator or something like that, you'll find it. And it's basically the indirect cost, all the indirect costs of an accident. What I was trying to do was wake up the frontline supervisory and director level department heads to say, when you have a claim, it's not just going into an insurance company and it's done. That claim costs us money. So I had a little mod calculator in here. Here's how much money that, what looks like a, $300 frequency wafer shard in somebody's finger claim. This is how much that claim actually cost. And me to track it down, the nurse, safety engineer, your people's time, lost production time, all this stuff. Different studies that are out there, 4 to 10 times the direct cost or what the indirect cost buried in your budget that you don't see. And a lot of times I do this presentation, I actually hand this sheet out and have somebody, go through a claim this is what I would do. And we required this on every incident that we got in, just to showcase, the cost and how this stuff adds up. So one of the previous slides I forgot to mention, the average disabling claim in the United States is $54,000 a year about. It's actually trending up. So if you save one of those claims in your organization annually, and this is what this is kind of representing. This is a real example of one of our accounts that we worked with. We figured they had $50,000 excess. They're running the 3% profit margin. You do the math, they have to generate $1.7 million about in sales just to offset the $50,000 excess of what they're paying from a mod impact. Another example here, this CEO came to us, healthcare sector, aging services group, and said, our mod's not too high. It's only a 1.18. He was saying, well, it's not that much over a 1. I said, actually, you should be looking at comparing it to a 0.5, 0.6, because that should be your objective. And so we did the math in the back end, just looking at their XMOD, not the load. A carrier will also, when you have a 1.18, they'll put you into a higher load. In addition to the mod impact, you pay another multiplier on top of it in some cases. So this account here, $220,000 excess they're paying, running a 5% margin, $4.4 million that he generated in sales. That was one of his facilities that he ran, the revenue that he got out of it, and that's where they got the impact.
Are those net profit margins or gross?
These are gross in this case, yeah. Okay, so the TCOR calculator I sent to you, so just to kind of put it into a nutshell here, insurance premiums, deductibles, routine losses, and then all these hidden costs. And this calculator that I'll send to you, we really extended the list, and then you can take this, and why we did it in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can modify it, make it specific to your organization. But you'll see a ton of costs similar to that Native American organization example that I just explained to you. This is kind of what it will look like, and then what you want to do is trend it over time. I did this presentation a couple months ago in North Carolina, and there's one client in the audience that had a 2.0 mod, and I said, perfect time to do your total cost of risk, because you know you have low-hanging fruit that you're going to be able to correct. So do it now, baseline. So take a snapshot. And then, total cost of risk is dynamic. If you have multiple sites, you have different times of the season. I gave you examples at Mitsubishi where we had different departments that were the drivers. You may want to do a total cost of risk on a specific department or a specific site that's problematic to really focus people. Can you hear me okay in the back? So what we would do is compare it to, sounds like it's not working. I think the battery kicked off. I'll talk loud. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. Okay, so what we would do is take it and compare it to how many dollars per $1,000 of budget. You can do it however you want. But then you want to trend it, because if you just do a snapshot, it's just a snapshot today. So trend it over like a 3 to 5 year period and see what it does. And once again, SullivanCurtisMonroe, you have loss control people that know this stuff. They have great experience that can come out and help guide you through this process. It's a fun process and it's eye-opening, and then really sets the stage for the deployment of the Risk Management Center. Next self-assessment question. If OSHA or your insurer came in today, are you compliant with the IIPP? Can you showcase all the good work you're doing? And that's just the starting question. They're also going to ask for your OSHA logs. And then an IIPP now, and I'll go into this a little bit later in the Risk Management Center discussions, that's just the opening. So what they came out with about 4 years ago, they said the template programs are not working. You have to have a real IIPP. That means if you have to do a hazard assessment and know what your exposures are. So if your people are doing elevated work or working in trenches, you have to have a respective program and training. And I'll show you different studies that have been done. There's actually a new Fed OSHA study, a white paper that was done by the RAND Institute independent survey, and I got some data in here, and I can send you the link if you're interested to take a look at that as well. Really eye-opening on what works and what doesn't work.
Well, I have a client that Veronica is working with right now, and they paid something like $2,500 for their IIPP, and it's like this thick, and it has all these different hazards associated with their organization. And when Veronica saw that for the first time, she said, you know, I'm kind of a believer that it should be smaller and it should be workable. And the client really didn't say much other than, okay, well then they do have a high mod, so OSHA came in and the OSHA consultant came in. And so the first thing he asked for was the IIPP and starts going through this huge binder and says, you know, it shouldn't be this big. And we were able, you know, we put it down to like 10 pages. But it was an eye-opener, and it was nice to have consulting in versus I've got another client that's got
OSHA consulting.
Yeah, I've got another client that has the enforcement, and so we're dealing with, you know, a $35,000 fine that we're trying to get reduced with some, you know, attorneys and things.
Yeah, great segue. Don't wait for OSHA to come in. You know, get proactive. You don't want OSHA, and once again, as I start to talk, I think all kinds of stories. We had an account in San Diego call us, and same thing. They had just gotten cited by OSHA. Small place, 25 employees. They just got cited by OSHA, no IIPP. And they called us, and she's scrambling, trying to put it together. And I said, you have access to the Risk Management Center. It is your IIPP. And she said, yeah, I don't know what to do. I said, attend our Monday training. So we do daily training every day at 10 o'clock Pacific time. And I was going to be in San Diego the next day, ironically, or that week. And I said, I'll stop in and see how you're doing. And so anyway, I show up at her site, and she's all excited because she says, I built my IIPP. I get what you're saying. She went into the library, got the respective, IIPP, all the what I call adjunct programs, like she had fall protection, ladder safety, different things that they were working, different exposures based on their exposures. Moved it into my content, assigned it to her staff, built the other, basically assigned the other training programs, respective training programs, and had a documentation trail and got OSHA off the bat. I have another presentation here. I'll show you a testimonial from one of our direct clients. Same type of thing up in Washington State. 15 states require IIPPs now. Fed OSHA's probably finally going to promulgate one. I remember, I'm going to date myself here, 1980, I was sitting there reading the Federal Register where they're coming out with a general safety program requirement. And just now, in the next year, I think one will actually come out. Very similar to the IIPP requirement in California. So you're ahead of the game. And I'll show you the study here in a second. So that's part one. Part two, reducing your total cost of risk. It is a 5-step program. Number one, you have to know what your TCOR is. So before you start to jump in and just say, okay, we're going to fix the problem, you need to know what the problems are. Where are your high losses? You have to do a hazard assessment and identify. So one is do your TCOR. Two, major loss sources. And wherever you see parentheses RMC, that is the Risk Management Center. You can load your historic loss data into the Risk Management Center and get these graphs to show where your losses are by injury nature, injury source, time of day, repeater, shift, claims lag time, which is probably the first thing I look at when I look at losses. What's the claims lag time? Because the higher the claims lag time, the longer it takes for you to report a claim, the higher the chance of litigation and the higher the severity cost or the indemnity costs in that claim are going to be. So, 4-step, TCOR, major loss sources, identify your problem areas like at Mitsubishi, lapping department, growing floor. 3, do a risk assessment, basically peeling back the onion, looking at hiring, and I'll show you a real example, hiring practices, safety and health programs, orientation programs, incident management, return to work, all that stuff needs to be looked at in a lot of detail. And we got, once again, great expertise here with SullivanCurtisMonroe. They know how to do this stuff in their sleep to really dig in there and do that gap analysis. And then 4, develop the plan of attack. Call it whatever you want, action plan, risk management plan, but basically who does what by when. And then 5 is to deploy it. And this is where the Risk Management Center comes in to prioritize the needs, identify the actions, what policies are you going to push out through the Risk Management Center, and assigning trainings off the Risk Management Center. You want to set measurable goals and track your performance, communicate all that internally. At Mitsubishi, I insisted on working for the president, and I also had a dotted line up to the VP of Finance at Mitsubishi, because they had some serious issues that we were addressing. And I said, I need the authority to do what we need to do. And they said, fine, but you got to be accountable. Accountable to what? TCOR, return on investment. I said, no problem, because that's what I'm going to lead with. And every week I would win and present to the director level what we're doing, what is the TCOR today, by department. And the department heads are sitting there, listening to what I'm saying. And everybody was on the same page. We had an action plan for each department to drive down, basically waste. Any claim that you have is waste because it's needless. Okay, so 5 is put the plan in place. This is an example of the gap analysis that we go through. So we start, as I said, with hiring practices. And the Risk Management Center has all the tools for you to deploy to do this. This gap analysis is sitting in the Risk Management Center that you can pull up today, take a look at, and then do your own internally. The things like, what are your medical coverages? Because if you don't have medical coverage on comp, what happens? Comp becomes your medical coverage. Do you have an IIPP in place that you review with people in the pre-hire stage? You see JHAs in here. JHA is a job hazard analysis. In the Risk Management Center, we have a tool called BBS Track that does a job hazard analysis required by Cal OSHA in the IIPP program development. And you have it, and I'll get into that later in the presentation. But how we use those with respect to hiring practices is we actually give a copy of the JHA to that interviewee to read through, and we get to assess their safety attitude, aptitude, and whether or not we think that their experience base is good for the position. And the JHA is basically a safety instruction specific to the position of that person, what they're going to come into. And I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. But we use JHAs, good thorough reference checking, drug and alcohol testing, where what you're allowed to do. And then getting into orientation. We don't just throw the person out on the floor. We would assign a safety mentor with the JHA in hand that we would check off line by line that this person understands and agrees to follow these critical safety behaviors that we outline in the safety instruction, the JHA. Some of the other things on here, checking them off on specific equipment that they're going to use, making sure they understand what is the return to work program at the organization, so that they don't just float off to a doctor on their own. They have to report that incident. That's one of the other things that we would fix right away is the incident reporting process. So people just didn't think that they could just run off to the doctor and report a claim. That's not how it works here. We need to know. We want to know everything going on. We have this little incident report card in the Risk Management Center that you can use. We call it a wallet card. And this is what I deployed. It says, if you see an unsafe act, unsafe condition, or if you have any ache or pain you want to share with us, here's an 800 number, and then you put the 800 number on. You want the call coming to you. You don't want going to OSHA. You don't want going to a doctor. You want to have the steering wheel. Okay, makes sense? And then the safety and health program. This is based upon your hazard assessment. So what you should be thinking, this kind of mirrors the IIPP requirements anyway, which it does. And once again, I'll give you this presentation so you can see it. This just goes through all the possible safety and health topics that an account could have to address internally. And then incident management, what is the incident reporting process, like I just explained. And then we could go into this, and we do these in a couple days. We do like a due diligence and peel back the onion, give an account a pure roadmap of what they need to do. We work with a paving contractor up in San Francisco, sitting at a 1.4 to 1.5 line for 8 years in a row. Imagine how much money, about 500 employees that they wasted, millions of dollars. And we went in a day, did a gap analysis, gave them a roadmap using the Risk Management Center, and they're pushing it down. I mean, just dramatically. So, return to work process. Do you have, different states, you're allowed to have designated providers. You need to have this, and once again, SullivanCurtisMonroe can help you through the weeds on this and get a good program set up. But we would set designated providers if we could. We would escort people or meet them at the physician, give them a modified duty job analysis to the physician, get the person right back to work. We had nobody out on return to work, or nobody out on time loss. Everybody was coming back to work, unless they, really serious injury. And then industrial hygiene exposures, often missed, noise exposures, chemical exposures, that you need to have both eyes open about, because they can be, one, claims, and two, be hurting people. And, it's my background, so I talk about it. And then you need to do an on-site hazard evaluation. So, the other day I was a couple weeks ago, I was up in Alaska, one of our accounts, who actually has a really well-dialed program with JHA's, behavioral-based safety. I walk out on the floor, and I see a forklift. What's the first thing I look at? Waking you up here. Seatbelt, thank you. Seatbelt's a great indicator. Or driving with a load up, or blowing through a blind spot. These are indicators. Guy didn't have a seatbelt on, and I go, Matt, who's like this great guy, I go, what's going on? Because this is an indicator. That's the tip of the iceberg. If you see safety glasses go from the top of the head to, getting put on, or you see earplugs just hanging in to say that they have them on, those are indicators. So you have to do that hazard assessment, the walkthrough. You want to look at major loss sources. This is data right out of the risk management center where you can get this kind of graph 24/7. So SullivanCurtisMonroe, as you move from carrier to carrier, you don't want to lose, you don't want to rely on that carrier for your loss data. You want to own that yourself with SullivanCurtisMonroe helping you. So 24/7, you can have your data in the risk management center and see it and be able to print these kinds of graphs so you can target problematic areas. And then the plan you put into place needs to take into account, number one, the first bullet needs to be continually reviewed. Like I said, I gave you the example of Mitsubishi. Every week I would have an updated plan for different departments. Just keep it current. It's, here's the stuff that we've done, and here's the stuff that we're fixing, and, or have fixed. You need to prioritize it, like I said. Sit down with SullivanCurtisMonroe and look at what exposures do we want to transfer to somebody else, called risk transfer. Either you transfer it to a carrier and get coverage for it and know what your protections are there based on your exposures, or you put a control in place to mitigate that loss source, engineer it away, for example, like some of the examples I gave you, simple examples at Mitsubishi. And then this is an actual example. This is one of our accounts that we worked with that was literally ready to shut their doors because of their X model and how much money it was costing them to keep that facility open. And we went in, and this just mirrors the different sections of the risk management, or of the gap analysis that we did. Hiring practices, orientation, safety and health programs, incident management, return to work, and just unfolds. And everything in black has been done. Everything in red is still an open item. This was the living document. This is the risk management plan of what we deployed with this account to get them properly focused and get their mod. And we have a testimonial on our website, talking about how we got their mod down to next to nothing. So let's take a real quick little break. Actually, let me get almost a break. Let me get done. So through SullivanCurtisMonroe, like I said, you have access to the Risk Management Center. When you come in, this is kind of what you see today. This is getting ready to be, we have a whole new refresh coming that we'll be working with SullivanCurtisMonroe on doing things like quick links, that you'll be able to interact with SullivanCurtisMonroe and go right to different sections of the platform, right out of the gate, like the HR resource and HR videos and risk management videos and different things like that, requesting a certificate of insurance through the system, quick report to report claims if you want to, so you can be in communication with SullivanCurtisMonroe. We see this as kind of the hourglass, between you and SullivanCurtisMonroe to really engage and help drive your total cost of risk down. There's a resource section in here in the bottom right. This is SullivanCurtisMonroe specific content that they have put in here, best practices specific to to you, what they want to provide to you in essence as the library. And then I'll get into the other sections here. The very first button though, and then we'll take a break, that I want you to click on is up in the top right called Help and Training. Before you go in, just like you get a new car, you get whatever you get new, everybody takes the owner's manual and I don't need that. So what I want you to do is go through our help and training. It's not painful; it's actually easy. We have recorded versions of it, and then we have live versions. So we have 3 full-time people. All they're doing is training all day. But 10 o'clock Pacific every day, we're doing a different section of the platform that you can come into. Every week, we're doing live, what we call Succeed University webinars that we talk about heat stress, IIPP building, ladder safety, sexual harassment. We just did one yesterday on sexual harassment in California Sexual Harassment Standard and Abuse Standard now. So all this stuff is you got tools in the platform to deploy and manage and comply. So go there, and then you just click the little links, and it signs you up. It automatically registers you for training. You get an email confirming it with the webinar instructions, go to meeting, and then it should just go to your Outlook, and then you're off and running. Get trained on how to use this thing. We don't want you just running in and playing with it. You have to set up. If you have multiple sites, Randy and I were talking about one operation having a lot of multiple sites. You got to set those up correctly. It's not any big deal, but you got to set it up correctly. You don't want to just go in there and start doing stuff, and then 2 months in say, "Well, I'm going to set up multiple sites now," because your data needs to be properly parsed into those different sites. So learn how to use it. Learn how to load employees. That's pretty much it. The applications themselves don't take too much time to learn, and we're like I said, we're doing a new release here shortly. All new user interface. It's clean, current, tablet compatible. We're doing a lot on the back end. So let's take 5 minutes, give you a little break there listening to me. Okay? I'm going to start right in 5 minutes because we don't have much time.
That's great.
What's that? Oh, is it? I was